بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا مولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا، اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Can I just confirm that you all can hear me, inshallah?
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام
ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Okay, let me just, okay, Bismillah. So I pray that all of you are well, inshallah ta'ala, that you and your families are well. And happy Women's Day. My wife is was scolding me for having class on Women's Day. So apologies if you were planning something more relaxing. Alhamdulillah, it's good to study Arabic and the Quran on Women's Day, inshallah. You'll speak a bit more about it later, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, so let's start with, I gave you some homework to do, and your homework was to look at Surah Al-Fatiha and then to try to identify all the elements in Surah Al-Fatiha. So that was your homework in terms of putting on the labels of all of the elements on Surah Al-Fatiha. So I'll open it up just in a PDF so I can annotate as we speak. Okay, so Bismillah. So what I'd like to do is I'd like for us to be able to use the Nahwu that we've done so far and to add labels to the surah. So let's begin. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Suratul Fatiha. Suratul Fatiha. So it begins with Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. So Bismillahi. Who wants to help me do the labels for that? For Bismillahi, what are the labels for that?
Assalamu alaikum, Alana.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Surabila. Bismillah.
Okay, so Bismillah, first we have harful jar and the ism majroor.
Okay.
So B
Good.
is the harful jar and ismi is the ism majroor, and then ism is also the mudaf and the word Allah is mudafun ilayh.
Okay, excellent. So the B, Bita Walika, is the harful jar, and then this here, let me just move the B below there, it's harful jar, and then this here will be the ism al-majroor, right? Majroor.
Yes.
And then we can see the word ism is not bismin, as bismi. There's no al, there's no tanween. So the word ism is light. And the word Allah is jar, therefore this is mudaf and mudafun ilayh, as you mentioned. So perfect. So the word Allah here is going to be mudafun ilayh. Mudafun ilayh. Okay. I think Wali on the line, inshallah. Let's carry on the next one. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim.
Okay, then Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim are both sifas, and the word Allah is the mawsuf.
Okay, good. So the word Ar-Rahman, therefore it's Ar-Rahmani, because the word Allah is in jar, and therefore Ar-Rahman is in jar. So therefore we say Ar-Rahman is a sifa, and Ar-Rahim is also a sifa. Okay, perfect. Okay, shukran. So if that is sifa, that's sifa, then this is also mawsuf here. This is also mawsuf. Sometimes there's like too many labels to fit in all the space. Mawsuf. And there's also mudaf as well, the ism here. Okay, good. Okay, so let's go to another student, inshallah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wants to help you put in the label. So, Bismillah, be, in, with, by, is, and because ism is light followed by jar mudaf mudaf ilayhi, I must add the of. So, in or by the name of Allah. And which Allah is this? This is the Ar-Rahman, Allah, the most merciful, Ar-Rahim, the most compassionate. We're going to the tafsir now. We're just going to the labels now. So, Bismillah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Who wants to go? Someone must be ready. Even if you know a few of it, you get Bismillah. Even if you know a few. Who is ready?
Alaikum salam, Maulana.
Wa alaikum salam wa tawfiq. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, Maulana.
Alhamdulillah.
I
So
just have a
Bismillah.
few, I think.
You have a few. That's good.
Not
Bismillah.
all. So the li in lillahi, that's a harful jar.
So the li, good from the bita wa lika as a harfu jar, good.
And then Allahi, that's the ismul majroor.
Good, that's the ismul majroor, good.
And then the Rabbi, that's light, followed by definite afterwards. That's mudaf,
Okay, good.
Rabbi.
Yes.
And then the al-alamina, that's mudafun ilay. And then
That's, okay, good. It's a mudaf ilayhi, good.
alhamdu, I'm not sure about that part of it.
Okay, so let me ask another question. Why do you think the word Rabbi is jar? The word Al-Alamin is jar. Why? Because Alamin is like Alamuna, Alamina. So
Alamina.
Alamina is jar because mudaf ilayhi. Why do you think the word Rabb is jar? Just think about which function is Rabb playing in the sentence.
Praise. It's I know the translation, so it is linked with the alhamdu. I'm trying to think now how exactly.
Okay, good. There's someone to help him. So we have two words here. We have Alhamdu, we didn't put the label on, and we didn't put the label on Rabb yet. So who wants to help with that one? Alhamdu and Rabb. Okay, but the thing also with Alhamdu.
Yes.
What do you think that really is? Take a guess. Okay, or you ask a different question. How do you translate verse number 2?
All out translated as all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds.
Okay, so when you translated, you said all praise is to Allah.
So that's
what type of sentence is that? That's it, something is something.
A noun-based sentence.
Yes, good. So
Hey, the holidays did me more than I can't remember
okay, good.
now.
So that's you're right. Like it's a noun-based sentence. So what are the two parts of the sentence? What are the two parts of noun-based sentence?
Mubtada, khabar, I think.
Okay, so normally a noun-based sentence, you remember, is a
mubtada. So that part must be the mubtada.
A mubtada is the focus of the sentence.
Because it also
the focus of the sentence. So
it ends in raf.
It ends in raf, yeah, and it's normally definite.
Okay. Yes. Now I remember. Yes.
Yeah. So if I ask you, so we can't really see the khabar here, but if I ask you like from a logical point of view, what is the news Allah is giving about all praise?
That it's due to the Rabb.
It is due to the Rabb, it's due to Allah. Therefore, we haven't done it yet properly, but we will say that this whole, let's see if I can make a shape here. This whole part here it almost like is in place of the khabar. You with me? The whole part here, we haven't done it yet this year, but this whole part here, Lillahi Rabbil Alameen, is almost like in place of the khabar. It gives me news. Something is something. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. Okay, good.
Okay.
Then the last one we have left out is Rabbi. So I think the question is when you look at the sentence, what function does Rabbi play? Is it the doer? Is it the done upon? Is it describing something?
So done upon.
Remember, done upon, you have the verb, eh? Okay, what's our brother Fikat? Why is Rabbi in jar?
It's describing Allah.
So the word Rabbi is describing Allah. So Alhamdulillah, all praise is for Allah. That's the sentence. That's sentence. And then the word Rabb is doing what? Is telling you more about Allah. So what do you call the describing word?
Sifa.
It is the sifa. Good. So where's the mawsuf?
Allah.
So Allah is the mawsuf. So tell me what's the hal of the mawsuf?
It's in sorry, what is Maulana saying? The Mawsuf or the
Of the mawsuf.
in Asp? Yes, is that it?
It's lillahi. You have two more guesses.
It's not the. I can say it's not the Rafun, so it's
So
Char.
Raf is who? Nasb is a, and E is
Yeah, Char.
jar. So you can see the word Allah, because it must match in gen. The word Allah is jar, therefore Rabbi is jar. Let me ask you another question, it's a bit difficult. The word Allah is it definite or indefinite?
It's definite.
Why is it definite?
It's referring to a specific being.
Is it a proper noun? Good, okay?
Yeah.
So the word Rabbi is definite or indefinite?
That's definite because of mudaf ilay.
Perfect, because mudaf is the implied al. So they're both definite, they're both jar, they're both they're
Oh
both
yes,
masculine,
yes. The green
and they're
gen.
both
Yes.
singular. So they agree in gen, and the Rabbi is then describing Allah. Okay, good, mashallah, excellent. Okay, so
Tough
that
one.
Rabbi there is describing Allah. This Rabbi, this is describing the word Allah. Rabbi there is describing the word Allah. And this Ar-Rahman is describing the word Allah, Sifa Mawsuf. And this Ar-Rahim is also describing the word Allah. Okay. So what we learn is that within the first two verses of the Fatiha, Allah produces 1, 2, 3 sifas about himself. He says, Bismillah, in the name of Allah. The first sifa is Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. And then the second sifa is all praise is to Allah. Who is Allah? He is Rabbil Alameen. Okay. Next one. Who wants to go next, inshallah? Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Who wants to go next? Bismillah. Brother Rashad.
Yeah, it's an easy one, Maulana, so I think it's the easy one, so I'll go for it.
Smart one.
Yeah, I think it's both words there are going to be a sifa
Perfect. They're both going
because
to be
they both agree in gen, and it goes back to the mawsuf, which is Allah,
perfect.
in the previous verse.
So this Ar-Rahman is definite, the word Allah is definite, jar, single, all those things. So all of this goes back again to this word Allah. And then this one also goes back to this word Allah. Okay. There's some debate about whether the Basmala is part of Surah Fatiha or not. In the Shafi madhab, it is part of Surah Fatiha. Within other madhab, like the Hanafis, it is something which is recited softly before Surah Fatiha, not considered to be the first verse of Surah Al-Fatiha. I think the Malikis as well don't consider it to be the first verse, whereas the Shafi is considered to be the first verse of Surah Al-Fatiha. So it does. Why I mention that is because if you are a Shafi'i, this will be the second time Allah mentioned Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim as a sifa. Whereas if you are a Maliki, for example, Well, actually, I'm not sure about the Hanafis whether they consider it to be a first verse of the Fatiha. From what I recall is that it's something which is recited before the surah silently, but not considered to be the first verse. If I may be corrected, but in the Shafi madhab, it's definitely considered to be the first verse. So this will be the 1, 2, 3, the fourth and the fifth sifa. Whereas if you're a Maliki, it would be the second and the third sifa. Okay. Next one. Maliki Yawmiddin. Nice, exciting one.
The day of judgment.
Okay, Master Day of Judgment. Let's do the labels. Bismillah.
Maliki is the madar.
Okay, so the Maliki is going to be mudaf because the Maliki is light and the Maliki is
And
followed
Yawm
by
is
jar.
mudafun ilayh.
So the Yawm is going to be mudafun ilay. Good.
And alladhi is also in madar.
Ad-Dini. Yes. Okay, so Ad-Dini is going to be.
Madar.
Sorry, Ad-Dini is going to be mudaf or mudafun ilay?
Adin is mudaf.
Okay.
Mudafun ilayh.
Mudafun ilay. Good. So where is the mudaf for Ad-Din?
The key on Maliki.
Okay, so the key on Maliki is going to be mudaf for Yawm. The
Yes.
owner of the day of so Malik is mudaf, right? And Yawm is mudafun ilay.
Yes.
Yes. And Ad-Din is also mudaf ilay, but where is the mudaf for Ad-Din? So we added the here. Oops. The and we're gonna add an of. So in other words, you can excuse me 1 second, spring my nose. Okay, so we can add a the before Malik and we can add an of afterwards, right? You agree with me?
Yes.
That's mudaf and mudafun ilay.
Yes.
Okay, so the owner of. Now my question is, you said Ad-Din is mudaf ilay, which is correct. So where is the mudaf for Ad-Din?
The Yawm.
The mudaf will be the Yawm. So in other words, because Yawm is mudaf, I must add a the before Yawm again.
Okay.
So therefore we translate it as the owner of the day of judgment. So there's one label left, and the one label is Maliki. So we know why a Yawm is going to be jar because it's mudaf ilay. We know why Din is going to be jar because it's mudaf ilay. My question is, why is Maliki in jar?
It's because
Is it also a sifa, Maulana?
it's a mudafun ilayh.
So if you say Maliki is mudaf ilay, what would it be mudaf ilay for?
For the key.
No, so the word Maliki is one word. It's not Mali plus ki. You with me? The word Maliki, the kaf there is not the kaf that is a pronoun. Maliki is just one complete word.
Okay.
So you with me? So why would that word be in jar?
Because it's going back to Allah.
Back to Allah. So if it's going back to Allah, what is the function there? It is also doing what?
Also a sifa.
It is also a sifa. So this year, going back to Allah. I'm sorry. Squeeze a bit here. Going back to the word Allah. Okay, actually, let's make an arrow there.
So
So
that
this would
also becomes a sifa.
also a sifa. So a sifa what you learn from the sifa can actually run across sentences. A sifa doesn't have to be restricted. Why doesn't it make an arrow for me? It doesn't have to be restricted to to like being next to the word. And come a bit further on.
Okay.
Okay, so there's the word Maliki. Okay, I know it's a lot, but that's the fun. This is a fun part. This. Okay, because the when you look at this from a grammatical point of view, it helps you add understanding. Okay, so what I'm going to do there is there is a thematic break after this sentence. So you studied Surah Al-Fatiha with Mawlana Zakaria before. Am I correct?
Say it again, Maulana.
You studied Surah Al-Fatiha with Mawlana Zakaria before,
No,
didn't you?
I can't remember that we did.
No, Maulana.
No, Maulana.
You sure?
No, I can't remember that we
Sure,
did.
sure, Maulana. So sure.
Oh, I was like so sure you studied Surah Al-Fatiha. No, I thought you know what's going on, and I thought you know. Oh, okay. I didn't know you didn't study it before. I mean, I should have known, but I think it was last year at the first interview with Mawlana Zakaria, and I think my timeline's blurred. So inshallah, what we'll do is what we're doing now is not studying Surah Al-Fatiha, which going to Nahwu labels. The surah itself requires about 9 to 10 hours of study. Let's say, okay, maybe 8 to 9 hours of study. So it'll take you about 8 to 9 hours for us to finish the surah, because we have to speak about all the words and the verses and how they relate and so on. So I think it's a good place to start, because now at least we get the Nahwu out of the way. So what I wanted to mention was that after this year, this is actually one section of Surah Al-Fatiha. From year to year is one section. Why I mentioned one section? Because that section deals only with Allah Ta'ala and doesn't directly mention human beings. It doesn't mention people. It is Allah telling us about Himself. Whereas verse number 5 is very different, because verse number 5 says, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. So what does it mean, and who will be saying that?
It will be us people.
It will be people speaking to Allah, and Allah is telling us how to address Him. And إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ means you we worship and you we pray for help. So the point I want to mention is the first 4 verses of Surah Al-Fatiha deals only with Allah. You know, it's Allah telling us about Himself. We're not involved in the conversation. As verse number 5 onwards, we are involved in the conversation. In fact, if you look at verse number 5, 6, and 7, and I'll do a very high-level translation. Iyaka, you alone, na'budu, do we worship, wa iyaka, and you alone, nasta'inu, do we seek help, ihdina, O Allah, guide us, as-sirat al-mustaqim, to the straight path, sirat al-ladhina an'amta alayhim, the path that you have placed your blessings upon it, غير المغضوب, not the path that has incurred anger, alayhim, upon them, waladhalin, and nor the path of those who are astray. So verse number 5, 6, and 7 are all what? They're all the same thing. What are they? They're all speech by us to Allah Ta'ala.
Yeah.
They're all speech. So from Iyaka na'budu to Iyaka nasta'in, to waladhalin, all of this is speech to Allah Ta'ala. Okay. So that's going to require quite a bit of study. So I think I'm going to leave it at that for now, because we're going to also do a detailed study of Surah Al-Fatiha. Probably not next week, or the week after we'll start, inshallah, with a detailed study of Surah Al-Fatiha. So what I'm going to ask you for homework is, I want you to attempt, and okay, maybe it's going to be too difficult for you. Okay, I think I was going to ask you to do the rest of the surah, the labels, but the rest of the labels are quite difficult. those first 4 verses should have been a little bit manageable. In other words, you should have gotten some of the labels at least. But the rest are a bit difficult. But if you think about the surah just from the benefit of the labels, now we understand a number of things. What's interesting within the first 4 verses, do we see a verb there?
No, Maulana. It's only isms.
Only ism. So if I had to ask you to, let's leave Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let's just start Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen ar-Rahman ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin. How many sentences is that? Not how many verses, how many sentences is it? Now, I remind you, a sentence in Arabic is either mubtada and a khabar or a fi'al fa'il maf'ul bihi.
It's one sentence.
It's one sentence. Why? Because alhamdu is the mubtada. And the word lillahi, it takes the place of the khabar. So we haven't done before, but it takes the place of the khabar. So you put something, is something. All praise is for Allah. Then Rabb is a sifa, Rabbil Alameen is a sifa, Ar-Rahman is a sifa, Ar-Rahim is a sifa, and Maliki Yawmiddin is a sifa. So Allah includes then 4 sifas about Himself in this verse. Okay. 4 sifas, and if we add the other 2, then it becomes 5 and 6 sifas He speaks about Himself. But that verse 2 refers to the first verse. So the first verse is kind of separate from the second verse. Okay. And then I mean there are other interesting insights. And I'll give you maybe one quick one and we can end with that inshallah. The word Rabb and the word Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim and Malik. Normally when it comes to Allah's sifas, we often look at His sifas through the paradigm of Jamal and Jalal. In other words, Jamal is sifas that are soft and beautiful and loving and gentle, and Jalal are sifas that are powerful and mighty and authority. Those are the 2 categorizations generally when they look at the sifas of Allah Ta'ala. How do you categorize Rabbil Alameen? As the might power one or the gentle soft one?
The mightiful, powerful one.
It will be the might and the powerful one. So we have the might and the powerful one. Then that's sifa number 1, right? So that's number 1. We have the might and the power. And Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, how do you categorize that?
Gentle.
Those are the gentle ones. And so they are, and then Maliki Yawmiddin, the owner of the Day of Judgment.
Mightiful.
Again, mighty. So in other words, Allah starts with a sifa which is mighty and powerful. He's the Lord of all the beings. So if you look at it, He starts with a sifa that is, let me just do it like this for you. He starts with a sifa that is, number 1 is going to be a sifa of might. I can do this here. The sifa of might. I'll put the M here just to make it easier. Then Allah follows up with the sifa of beauty or gentleness. It could be for here. And another sifa of beauty, which is Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, and then ends with the sifa of might. You following me here? So Rabb is might and power. Ar-Rahman, soft, gentle love. Ar-Rahim, soft, gentle love. Malik, owner, might and power. So what you find actually is that this is if you connect this here, this is almost like like 2 circles. But what is at the core of the circle?
The beauty.
So even in the structure of that, Allah's putting the rahmah and the love and the beauty at the core of His description. And that is also consistent with Allah saying, "Inna rahmati sabaqat ghadabi." Verily, my mercy, my love outstrips my anger. Wa rahmati wasi'at kulla shay. And my rahmah encompasses all things. So it's consistent with the message of Allah Ta'ala that His defining quality is rahmah. kataba ala nafsihi rahmah, he wrote upon himself in rahmah. There are many ayat and hadith about the Prophet. Allah is defining central quality being rahmah. So even within Allah's description of himself, he puts rahmah as the core of his description. You with me? And if you add, obviously, if the Shafi'i at the first verse, you're beginning in the name of rahmah, and the description of Allah Ta'ala is, the heart of it is rahmah as well. So there's a lot of benefit in knowing where the sifas and the mawsuf is, and then actually like studying their structure as well. But we'll do it inshallah in our study of Suratul Fatiha. But to have a discussion often, it's good to know the Nahwu. So when I say there's a sifa of Jalal and a sifa of Jamal, you know what I mean. So I just
There's also a balance, Maulana.
Yes. There's also a balance, yes, between the Jamal and the Jalal. It's not all Jamal, it's not all Jalal. There's a balance between the two. And this is the nature of Allah Ta'ala, is the nature of balance. And we will speak a lot about the balance in Surah Al-Fatiha as well. It's really, I mean, people say like Surah Al-Fatiha is like mind-blowing, but you can like say it just because you have to say it, or you can say it because you mean it. But I think you can only really say it if you mean it, if you studied it. Like if you never studied the surah, you can't really say it's that mind-blowing because you don't know what the words mean. If that makes sense to you. Like sometimes we say like Surah Al-Fatiha, it's like really amazing, but it can only be amazing to you if you know what it means. So, and Surah Al-Fatiha, like over the years, has really, like I've taught Surah Al-Fatiha probably about for 10 years now, consecutively, even more than that, probably 12, 15 times to Surah Al-Fatiha. And every time I study the surah, every time I find some, because obviously as I'm preparing for class, I'm reading tafsir and analysis of Surah Al-Fatiha. Every time I read, then there's something new. And sometimes there's like big things that I haven't seen before. So it continuously almost like just has more and more and more as part of its study. So it's really is a spectacular surah. It's called Ummul Kitab. It's called the mother of the Quran, and it's called the mother of the Quran in the sense that all of the Quran is contained within Surah Al-Fatiha. It is Al-Fatiha, the opening of the book, and the rest of the Quran can be considered to be tafsir of Surah Al-Fatiha. And therefore, this is the one that is repeated every day in every prayer, in every salah. It's repeated all the time because it contains almost the entire message of the Quran. The rest is just tafsir. The rest is just explanation of Surah Al-Fatiha. So it's a very powerful surah which we will start studying within the next week or two, inshallah. We'll only do one verse per lesson. And each verse will probably take us about 40 minutes, 45 minutes maybe, inshallah ta'ala. We'll do it soon. I just want to first wrap up the Nahwu and some of the Sarf, and then we'll get to Surah Al-Fatiha. But it was a good effort now with your analysis, alhamdulillah. Okay, good. Any questions on the surah before I carry on? Not like, I mean, okay, you can ask general questions, fine. Bismillah, Brother Irshad.
Maulana, I just had a question about the distinguishing. You had mentioned it when you were talking about it. Maulana had mentioned when you were talking about it that there's sentences and then there's verses. As like a kind of naive understanding, it would have been, I thought that the verses ended on the sentence, but clearly from this discussion that we've had now, the verses can continue on. Could Maulana provide some insight, or if the question is premature, when we get to it, we can get to it.
Yeah, so basically, when we say a sentence in Arabic, we mean a jumlatul fi'liya or jumlatul ismiya, because those are two types of sentences. So what we find actually is that one verse can actually contain multiple sentences. You might have one ayah and may have three jumlas in it. It may have three jumlatul fi'liyas or ismiyas within it. And then on the other hand, also you might find that one sentence, one jumla, as we have here, we have a jumlatul ismiya from verse number 2, 3, and 4, extends beyond an ayah. It extends beyond an ayah. So I think that may only be strange for us because we're used to English class where the teacher says after every sentence put a full stop. And then we think, okay, full stop must be like the end of an ayah. But in Arabic, it's not, we don't equate the end of an ayah to a full stop, if that makes sense.
So if I may ask, Maulana, what then causes the end of an ayah then?
The end of the ayah is basically like there are like ends in meanings. So in other words, something can end and something, so what I'm saying is it does present an end in a specific meaning, like Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen is a complete concept on its own. So it like warrants an end. Whereas Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, you can add some more information about it. But the reality is that the ayah endings are ijtihadi. The ayah endings are ijtihadi, which means that they are actually, ulama differ about the ayah endings. So obviously some of them, there's an agreement on many of them, but some of them actually have a difference of opinion on where certain ayahs end. Sahaba would have often heard the Prophet reciting and obviously pausing after. The Prophet Sunnah was that he would read Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. The Prophet in his recitation would pause at the end of an ayah that would become the ayah ending. So I mean, to answer your question, why do you have an ayah ending, is basically to have a package of meaning. And that package of meaning can continue in the next ayah, even though it's the same sentence, as we have in Surah Al-Fatiha. We have like a package of meaning. And also, I think also it adds to the melody of the Quran. Like if you think of the Quran as a book which is recited. So if you don't have the ayah ending, it's going to be recited very differently. But now it's recited in a very distinct way. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. So there's a specific musicality and melody about it. And that musicality and melody actually also concurs with the meaning. And that package also impacts the heart as well. Because the Quran is actually a recited book. So to facilitate the recitation of the Quran, that would also be a reason for the ayah endings. But they are ijtihadi, which means that there is difference of opinion with regard to where the ayahs end. And therefore you'll find that different scholars sometimes have different number of ayat in the Quran. They come to a different number. It's not because the Quran is different, it's because sometimes some scholars will make one ayah actually into two ayahs. You with me?
Okay, shukran. Thank you for the
So some scholars,
information.
and I stand correct, but I think I remember reading that some scholars put an ayah ending after alayhim. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. Pause. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. So there's different opinions with regard to the ayah endings, but it's also to facilitate the recitation of the Quran.
Cool. Shukran for that one.
That's best. Any other questions? Okay. I think let's go to some new work. Inshallah. Okay. So today, if you go back to this table here, we have completed the top two, the Jumlatul Ismiya and the Jumlatul Fi'liya. And now we've completed the Mawsuf and Sifa, the Harful Jar Ism Majroor and the Mudafun and the Mudafun Ilay. And today we move to the last block, is the Ismul Isharah. The Ismul Isharah is going to be the last Nahwu concept we're going to do now. So the Ismul Isharah, in English it's called the demonstrative pronoun or demonstrative pronoun, demonstrative, I'm not sure which I say it. Either one's probably fine. The demonstrative pronoun. In other words, it's when you point to something, when you indicate to something. Okay, so the first two words are read هذا and هذه, هذه, هذا. So even though I don't have it there, so I probably couldn't find the character. The ha then has a little mud on it. The ha has a little mud on it. So it's actually not hada, it's hada and hadihi. هذا. So say to yourself, هذا, هذه. Say to yourself again. Okay, and so when we mean a mud, I'll just put the mud in manually. There's a little mud here. There's a hada like that. A hada and a hadihi, like a little mud there. Small alif. Hada, hadihi. So hada means this. So you can maybe point right and say hada, this, for a masculine thing. And hadihi means this for a female thing, and sometimes can also mean these as well for a group of non-human things. But the main just means this. So هذا, هذه, هذا, this, هذه, this, male and female. Let's go with each other. هذا, this, هذه, this. Actually, don't point far, you must point close, because هذا means this and ذلك means that. So what's the difference between this and that? What's the difference between this and that?
Distance from the object?
This is close by and that is far away.
Eh? What's the difference between this and
This
that?
is close by and that is far away.
So this is an indication towards something close, and that is an indication towards something far. So هذا means this, and هذه means this, male and female. And we have the next two, that also has a little mud on there. And I have the mud here, but let's put on here. The also has a mud. ذلك. ذلك. So you can point far away with the hand, one finger to the right. ذلك. That. If you're pointing far away. ذلك. That. And if you're pointing to a female thing far away, you can point تلك. ذلك and تلك. Let's say those four together. هذا, this, هذه, this, ذلك, that, and تلك, that. هذا, this, هذه, this, ذلك, that, تلك, that. Male and female. And then this also has a mud here. This is going to be, normally it's joined there, I don't have to join it anyway. It's هؤلاء. هؤلاء. We say together. هؤلاء. هؤلاء means these. These. And the these there normally refers to people. هؤلاء means these. And the last one, أولئك means those. So هؤلاء you can point something close. These. And أولئك. أولئك means those. أولئك means those. For a group of people who are far away. So these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words, they are called Ismul Isharah. So like a set of words like Yulan, Damir, Huwa, Hum, Hiya, Hunna, Anta, Antum, Anti, Antuna, Ana, Nahnu. Those are all called Damir. These 6 here are called Ismul Isharah. They each called an Ismul Isharah. The plural will be Asma'ul Isharah, but each one there will be called Ismul Isharah, demonstrative pronoun. So let's say the 6 again together. هذا, هذه, ذلك, تلك, هؤلاء, أولئك. Again, هذا, and point we have to, هذا, هذه, ذلك, تلك, هؤلاء, أولئك. One more time. هذا, هذه, ذلك, تلك, هؤلاء, أولئك. This is the translation. هذا, this, هذه, this, ذلك, that, تلك, that, هؤلاء, these, أولئك, those. Okay, it's called Ismul Isharah. Okay. If you look at the screen, we have 4 phrases there. We have هذا ولد, هذا الولد, ذلك ولد, ذلك waladu. Okay, so I'm not going to ask you to guess the meaning. I'm going to give you the meaning. Hada waladun means this is a boy. Hada means this, waladun boy. Hada waladun means this is a boy. Next one. Hadal waladu means this boy. This boy. Next one. Dhalika waladun means that is a boy, because remember dhalika means that, and dhalikal waladu means that boy. Based on those few examples, what can you observe about the Ismul Isharah? What can you observe about Ismul Isharah? Yes.
Maulana. You know, I just want to ask something. I say, Hada waladun, this is the boy. Hada waladu, my instinct told me, this is the boy. But that's not the case. This
Yes.
is this boy. So how will I say, this is the boy?
Okay, I'm going to get the answer later on.
Okay.
Get the answer later on.
Exactly.
So what I want to answer is to tell me what pattern do you recognize here in terms of how hadha and dalika is used?
Maulana, the hada in the first one, hada waladun. It's a indefinite waladun, and hada al waladu. This boy is indefinite. So when you translate, if it's not indefinite, then it's this is a boy. It's indefinite, then it's this boy. And likewise on the other side, for the female.
Okay, so let me ask a different question. What is the difference between saying this is a boy and saying this boy?
One is a sentence and one isn't a complete sentence.
Okay, good. So the one is a sentence. If I say this is a boy, that's a sentence. I can then keep quiet after that. You can't say this boy and then keep quiet afterwards, because that's not a complete sentence. You all agree with that?
Yes, the top, this is a boy looks like a mubtada and a khabar sentence.
Okay, perfect. That looks like exactly like a mubtada and a khabar sentence. Okay. Which brings me to an important point that I maybe didn't mention. Let me go back to it. These ones here, هذا, هذه, ذلك, تلك, هؤلاء, أولئك. Do you think this is ism, fi'l, or harf? This, that. These words here, هذا, هذه, ذلك, تلك, هؤلاء, أولئك. Are they ismun, fi'lun, or harfun? What do you think?
It's an ism.
It's an ism.
It's a noun.
Pronouns. Pronouns.
It's not a word. It's a demonstrative noun in English, and it's different ism because we can see by the name. What's the name of this thing called?
Ism al-Isharah.
Ismul Isharah. Okay, so it's definitely an ism because it's called Ismul Isharah, and it's pointing something. So, for example, if I have a pen here, and I say this, the thing I'm pointing to is a ism. This. This pen. Okay. So the first thing I maybe we didn't mention was that these are all isms. These are all isms. The second thing about these isms is that the ism always has a hal. Like for example, bait, baitun, baitan, baitin has a hal. So these isms also have a hal, but the difference is you can't see the hal. The word is always fixed. For example, hada in raf'un is hada. Hada in nasbun is hada. Hada in jarrun is hada. It doesn't change. So you can't see the change in the hal. Like tilka, raf'un tilka, nasbun tilka, jarrun tilka. That's just the thing. Just to get back, somebody mentioned, mashallah, they mentioned that هذا ولد looks like a mubtada khabar. That's correct, it is a mubtada khabar. Because something is something, this is a boy. Good. So, what's the rule? When do I add an is or an are? When do I add an is or an are?
When the second word is indefinite.
So when the second word has no al, in indefinite has no al, then I add an is, and then when the second word is definite, I add no is. I'll say it again here. If there is no al on the second word, if there's no al on the second word, and then I add an is or an are. If there's no al on the second word. Okay. So I will ask you to quickly translate. How to say هذه البنت? Translate for me. هذه البنت. Anybody can shout out?
This girl.
This girl.
Let's go.
This girl. Good. Next one. هذه بنت.
This is a girl.
This is a girl. Good. Next one. تلك بنت.
That girl.
That
That is a girl.
Are you sure? What's تلك بنت?
That is a girl.
That is a
that
girl.
girl.
And remember, if there's no al, we add is or are. So there's no al on bintun. So we add, so tilka bintun means there's no al on bintun, so we add a is or are, that is a girl. Tilkal bintu.
That girl.
That girl. Tilkal
That girl.
is that girl. Good. So let's not do this. If you can open your Nahwu textbooks. I'll just call that. You can open your Nahwu workbooks. And then we're coming to the end of our workbook, mashallah. Hopefully your workbook is full of work. You know, it's called a workbook for that reason, no? Workbook. It's full of work. Okay. So we're going to, I was going to add pages next time, but we're going to 8.1. We're going to 8.1. We're going to 8.1. Okay. Are you all there? Inshallah. So now, on 8.1, we have on the right hand side here, we have هذا, هذه, ذلك. You can see the mads there now. تلك, هؤلاء, أولئك. Those are going to be the ismul Isharah. And then we have to translate them. We have to translate them. So for example, we have ذلك waladun. Number one here, we have ذلك waladun. ذلك waladun translates as that is a boy, because there's no al on walad, so I add an is or an are. Whereas ذلكal waladu, if there's an al on the second word, I add no is or are. ذلكal waladu, that boy. هذه البنت means there's an al, so no is and are. This is, oh no, sorry, this girl. And هذه بنت means this is a girl. So I'm going to ask you just to take a minute, inshallah, take a minute and do number 5 to 10. Take a moment on your own, do number 5 to 10, or if you're fast, you can do the rest of it as well. But at least quickly work on 5 to 10, or 5 to 12, inshallah. Let's go to 5 to 12. Shajarun means a tree, and al-fakiha means fruit, a fruit. So work on number 5 to 12 if you quickly, inshallah, on your own. I'll give you like a minute, inshallah. Not a minute, like 2-3 minutes.
Bas we finish the lot, Maulana?
Anyone has a translation for number 13?
So these are men.
Rijalun, isn't Rijalun a man?
Men.
Men, plural.
Raju.
Men.
Rajul is men. Men. Rijalun is men. These are men. These are men. These are men. True hada sajaratan. This is a tree. These hadihi. This I put here. This fruit. These are men. Talikau. Talikau. Talikau.
Does anybody have a translation for Sabura?
I think
Blackboard.
that is
Blackboard.
chalkboard.
Blackboard.
Blackboard.
Because I could only think of a biscuit that's called a sabura.
Yeah, business.
Fakiyatu.
Fruit.
Oh, shukran.
Okay, assalamu alaikum. Sorry, I stepped away for a moment. But I see you guys are carrying on, mashallah. Okay, so Bismillah. Okay, give it another minute or so. Just to maybe you're finishing it. The sabura is a board, like a chalkboard or a whiteboard. The sabura is a board. Fakia is fruit. Okay, Bismillah, let's go through some answers, inshallah. You can all take a turn to do one answer. And then get someone else the chance, inshallah. So, number 5, Bismillah. هؤلاء مسلمون. Translation?
These are Muslims.
Good. These are Muslims. There's no al there, so we add is and are. Number 6, هؤلاء الرجال.
These men.
These men. Good. Number 7, أولئك مسلمون.
Those are Muslims.
Those are Muslims. Again, no al, so therefore we add is and are. Number 8, أولئك المسلمون.
These Muslims.
Those Muslims.
So أولئك is those. Good. So أولئك المسلمون means those Muslims. Okay. So number 9, هؤلاء المسلمون.
These Muslims.
هؤلاء these المسلمون, these Muslims. No al, we add is or an are. Next one, هذا ولد.
This is a boy.
This is a boy. No al, we add is or are. Number 11, هذا شجر.
This is a tree.
This is a tree. Next one, هذه الفاكهة.
This fruit. This fruit.
This fruit. فاكهة. This fruit. هؤلاء رجال.
Those are men.
Those are men. Next one.
Is Maulana, these are men?
It's these are men.
Sorry, these are men, yes. So هؤلاء, these are رجال, these are men. Next one. ألف لام ميم ذلك الكتاب. ذلك الكتاب.
That book.
That book.
That book. Good. Next one.
Maulana, so why are they translating it to this book?
That's a tafsir question, inshallah. So the quick answer is that generally speaking, in Arabic, to refer to something with regard to distance is considered to be more respectful. So what do you mean by that? I'll give an analogy. When you greet someone, you don't normally say assalamu alayka and assalamu alayki. You normally say assalamu alaykum. But kum is what? Single or plural?
Plural.
Plural. So generally, even though you're greeting one person, you are greeting them in the plural. Now you could maybe say because you're greeting the angels as well. But the truth is that in Arabic, when you want to honor someone, you refer to them as the plural. Like so, you normally would say kayfa haluka or kayfa haluki. If you want to honor someone, you say kayfa halukum. It's a more honorable thing. So the same with Arabic, the dhalika is considered to be more honorable than the hadha, because the dhalika is distance. So once again, So some Mufassirun will say that the dhalika of dhalika al-kitabu actually has the meaning of hadha, which means this, but it is written as dhalika for the purpose of honor, for honor of the Quran. So therefore they would still translate it as this book. And other translations, actually let's just do a comparative quickly. I always find it interesting to do comparative studies here. So let's just look at, we go to Quran.com and we do a quick comparison on how people translate it. So we go to Quran.com. And then we're going to go to Al-Baqarah, verse number 2. And let's add all the translators here. That's a fun side. Have you add translators here? Here we go, translations. So let's add this all of them quickly. Wherever they are. Okay, all the okay, so I that verse number 2. So as you can say, it says ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ. So they're saying this book. So you see that the Khalil is, he say that is the book. Sure, that's interesting. Muhsin Khan says this is the book. Pikthol says this is the scripture. This is. Muftaki Usmani, who's more of an Arab person, will not add the is, because is what comes after the alika? There's an al there. You with me? So there's technically supposed to be no is.
There's an al.
Yes, the al there. But I mean, these things are also, what I give you is a general rule. These things are often adapted within tafsir study and linguistic study. So this is the book, this is the book, this is the book, this is the book. So basically everybody's saying this except for one translator saying that. Many people are adding is except for Mufti Taqi Usmani, who doesn't add the is. So the short answer to your question is that it's based on a tafsir interpretation. That the dhalika is by the meaning of hada, for ta'zeem, for honoring the Quran. Okay, but those discussions we get to in tafsir, inshallah. Next one, tilka sabura.
That board.
That board. Next one, هذه فاكهة.
These are fruit.
هذه فاكهة. This. Remember, هذه is this. So فاكهة means هذه, this is a fruit. هذه فاكهة, this is a fruit. Next one, أولئك.
So it cannot not be these or fruit, because they on the side column it says this or these in bracket.
Yes. But more likely is that the plural of فاكهة is فواكه. So if it says هذه فواكه, then it will be these are fruits. Okay, so this is a fruit because it's going to be singular.
Okay.
Number 17, أولئك أولاد. Translation.
Those boys. It's those are boys.
Those are boys.
Oh, those are boys. Good. Next one, هذه فاكهة. We did already. This is a fruit. Next one, هذا الولد.
This boy.
This boy. هؤلاء رجال. هؤلاء رجال.
These are men.
These are men. Okay. So first of all, I wanted you just to be able to translate it firstly. And now I'll quickly put on the labels for you. I'll put on the labels for you. I'll put on the labels for you quickly. So Absolutely wrong presentation, yeah. Okay, so we actually put the labels on differently depending whether there's a L or no L after the hada. So let me just do it for you. So هذا البيت translates as this house. You agree with me because there's no L, so there's no iso or R. So we're going to say that the هذا is an ismul ishara, the هذا is ismul ishara, and the thing coming after it is called musharun ilayhi. It's called musharun ilayhi. And it's only, so this is a little bit of a tricky part, it's only called musharun ilayhi when it has an al. It only has a musharun ilayhi when it has an al. So if it's هذا baytun without the al, we don't call it musharun ilayhi. If it's هذا البيت with the al, we call it musharun ilayhi. So it's ismul ishara and musharun ilayhi. And the feature about this, or the reason we do this, is because the musharun ilayhi is a follower of the hada. What do I mean? Whatever hal the hada is in, the musharun ilayhi will be the same hal. Whatever hal the hada is in, the musharun ilayhi will follow that hal. Okay. So I know you're going to tell me that, but you can't see the hal of the hada, but you can work out the hal of the hada. So the musharun ilayhi follows the hal of the hada. Let me give an example. If I have fi hadha al-bayt. First translate this for me, fi hadha al-bayt.
In this house.
In this house. Let's put the labels on. What do you call the fi?
The harful jar.
Harful jar.
Harful jar, good. So then what comes after harful jar? What is the hada?
Ismul
Ismul
majroor.
majroor.
Ismul majroor. So you see, so what hal is the hada in?
Yes, in jar.
Jar.
So even though you can't see the hal, you can work out the hal. So the hada will be in jar, and the al-bayt is the al-bayt musharun ilayhi, yes or no?
Yes, it is, Maulana.
It is why? Because it follows the hada and it has an al. And therefore, what hal must the al-bayt be in?
Also in jar.
Must be in jar. So you can't in Arabic say fi hada al-baytu or fi hada al-bayta. You must say fi hada al-bayti. Why? Because hada is ismu majroor because of the fi, and therefore al-bayt is a follower. Okay. Okay, we can take one student for each one, inshallah. Bismillah. ضرب هذا الرجل الولد. Who wants to go first? Translation and then labels.
So,
This may. No.
Okay, there was a question. Tasneem, Bismillah.
no, Maf, I was going to give the answer, but Con, you can.
Continue.
It's Women's Day. You must go first.
Okay, so is it this man hit the boy?
Okay, good. So translation: this man, because هذا الرجل is this man, hit the boy. Good. So this man hit the boy. Let's do the labels for me. So Tasneem, Bismillah. So daraba is a verb.
Yes, so that's a past tense verb.
Past tense verb.
Your fa'il, the doer would be the man.
Okay, so just think about that.
Okay. Oh, this man. So
which one is the fa'il?
The doer. This man.
Okay, this man, the construction, yes, but of those two words, which one is the fa'il?
The hada.
The hada would be the fa'il, because the hada, I could say daraba hada al-walada. So I say this,
yes,
the boy. So the hada there is the fa'il. What about the arajulu?
So it's the ismul, the musharun ilay.
It is the musharun ilay because it's the one that has the al.
Yes.
And therefore you can see it's a follower of the hal of the hada. What's the hal of the hada?
Raf'un.
Raf'un, because it is?
It's the doer.
Fa'il, good. And walada is in nasbun because it is?
The done upon the maf'ulun bihi.
Maf'ulun bihi. Perfect. Okay, next one, inshallah. Next student. Ila hadha rajuli. Translation and labels.
To this man.
Okay. To this man. Good. Ila, to hadha rajuli, this man. Bismillah, the labels.
So ila's harf jar.
Yeah, harfu jar, good.
Hada's ism majrur.
هذا is ismun majroor, and therefore which hal is هذا in?
Hada's in jar.
Yeah, perfect. And rajuli?
Rajul is also in jar. That's also the ism majrur. Musharun ilayh.
Musharun ilayh. Perfect. Good. Next one, inshallah. Darabtu hadha rajulah. What's it go?
We hit this man.
Okay, not we. Darabtu.
We hit this man.
I.
Okay, so it's
Sorry,
darab. I hit this man. Good, perfect. So daraba is the verb. Where's the fa'il? Who did the eating?
I.
Okay, so where's the I in the sentence?
It's inside the verb.
Okay, so remember before we look inside, where do we look first?
On the left.
Remember it's Eli. So what's the E for? It's Eli. It's Eli, eh? Eli. Eli is for end, left in. So the first thing we look at the end of the word daraba. What do we find at the end of the word daraba? What's the end of the word darabtu?
Darabtu.
The two. So this two here is actually the fa'il. This two here is the fa'il, is the doer. So we don't say that's inside. We only use inside normally if we can't see it. Like the huwa inside or the hiya inside. But if we can see it at the end, we say it's at the end of the verb. So the star at the end here is the fa'il. Then what is the hada then?
This.
This. Which label would you put on there?
Ismul Ishara.
Is Ismul Ishara good? At the same time also it's what else? Who did I hit?
The man.
I hit this man. So if I took out the man and I say darabtu hadha, how do you translate it?
It's just I hit. Yeah. It just I hit this.
I hit this. Then what would the this then be?
It will be pointing to something that's this. But it doesn't say this, but in the sentence here, it's this man.
Okay, good. So in other words, who is the action being done to? I'm doing the eating, but who's the action being done to?
The man.
So if there was no man, it would be this.
This.
So if there was no man, then the action would be done to the hada, which would be the this. And therefore the hada there is, what do we call the done upon in Arabic again? What do you call the person we do the action to? The person who does the action is called the fa'il. What do you call the person who does the action to?
مفعول به.
Maf'ulun bihi. Good. So the hada there is maf'ulun bihi. Darabtu, I hit. Who did I hit? Hada. I hit this. And ar-rajul is going to be musharun ilay because it's a follower of the maf'ul bihi. If I must say ar-rajul lah. Okay, good. Last one. هذا الرجل كبير. Translation and labels. Anybody? Bismillah. Translation. هذا الرجل كبير. Translation and then labels. I'll help you with the labels, inshallah.
This man is big.
Okay, good. So هذا الرجل, this man, كبير, is big. So what label do I put on the هذا?
مبتدأ.
The هذا good will be مبتدأ. A good way to work on the label is to take out the مشار إليه. Like for example, we say
Yeah.
هذا كبير,
Yeah.
is big. هذا كبير, and then هذا is the مبتدأ. What is the رجل?
Yeah. The مشار إليه.
إليه, and therefore it's a follower of the هذا. So what حال is the هذا in?
It's رفع.
It's مبتدأ. And the كبير is what حال?
Also رفع.
Because it is?
It is the خبر.
Is the khabar. Is the khabar. Perfect. So I'm going back to my illustration here. When I have hada, it's ismul ishara, and when it is as an al on the next word, it's called musharun ilay. That will be a follower of the hada. My last question for the lesson today is: what happens when there's no al on the hada? What are the labels then? Okay, so all this is actually all the answers. Okay. What happens when there's no al? Like هذا صغير. What are the labels? Because we no longer call musharun ilay. What do we call it now?
Becomes a mubtada and khabar.
It becomes a mubtada and khabar. So you look at the bottom part there, it says al-baytu saghirun. Al-baytu, something is something. Al-baytu, the house, is small. Something is something. Then hada saghirun means this.
Is a small house.
This is small. So if you're looking at the house, you can say the house is small. Or I can point to the house and say this is small. Same thing. The house is small. This is small. And therefore, both of these here are the mubtada. Al-bayt is the mubtada and hada is also the mubtada. And saghir is the khabar. So it's a very easy, just take a step back. I know it's been a long lesson. Just pause for a moment. If there is no al after hada, hadi, dhalika, tilka, haulai, ulaika, after ismul ishara, we always add an is or an are. And whenever you hear in Arabic is or are, you immediately think Jumlatul Ismiyah. Something is something, some things are something. You think something is something, and therefore you basically have a Jumlatul Ismiyah, Mubtada and Khabar. Okay. Inshallah, we will summarize again this and revise it again. But the best way for you to learn, obviously, is for you to work on it. So your homework, inshallah, is 8.2. It's Ismul Ishara from the Quran. Ismul Ishara from the Quran, worksheet 8.2. And I'll also just tell you that there must be a visible al, for you not to add is or are. If there's no visible al, like ulaika hizbullah, you still add is or are. But anyway, you work through this worksheet. Whatever you get stuck with, we will sort out in the next lesson, inshallah. So work through worksheet 8.2 for homework. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to take out worksheet 8.2, and to start the worksheet now, I'm just going to